I was reading that you made this in 19 days. How did you do that?
Well, we shot it in 19 days. We certainly made it over longer, writing and everything. It was fast. It was so fast. Emma and Daryl were incredible at knowing their lines and kept working every night to kind of keep that going. That sounds like the most basic bit, but actually, like, we were doing 12-minute takes, so we wanted to maintain that performance, across everything. So they had to do that, and the camera team had to really work out what they were doing to manage that as well. But actually, one room, two brilliant actors. It didn't feel terrible. It didn't feel as fast as it sounds. Yeah.
I mean, because you make it incredibly cinematic. But was that a sort of challenge? Because I guess when you have a sort of single setting sort of film, two characters, sometimes movies can feel a bit like a kind of stage production. But this never felt that way. Was that something that you had to consciously really work towards?
We worked pretty hard on that, just like how we'd move the camera, definitely the light and how the light would change. But also, like, I think of their bodies as kind of being landscapes. So I always felt like, we'd hit a point where as we'd be wired and we'd be watching for dialogue, but suddenly we'd be able to come into kind of the texture and the landscape of their bodies. That helped a great deal.
I mean, in terms of casting, I'm sure finding your Nancy was pretty easy. They probably just thrilled that Emma sort of signed up. But how is it finding your Leo? Because you needed a young actor who had a perfect blend of being kind of seductive and vulnerable. And I mean, Daryl just brings that sort of tenfold.
Yeah. When we first met him, we were looking at a lot of people. We knew we didn't necessarily have to have someone who came with a big name, which is rare for this kind of thing. But we had Emma, so, and she really wanted to have somebody opposite her where it felt like this was an opportunity for them. And when we met Daryl, he brought a whole lot of layers that I really loved for the role, and I felt like the role sort of shifted to be more like him in some respects. And there's a sort of generosity and an openness that's really important, and he's not faking it. Like, that's just a very natural kind of quality for him. And he's kind of, a bit cat-like or something, it felt like a little bit of a risk, because, going head-to-head with Emma, as someone who hadn't even done heaps of theatre or whatever, but she's really generous, and he really rose up, to meet her in that way. And we were so thrilled when we found him. Yeah.
I mean, Emma is wonderful. I mean, it's one of her best ever performances, which is saying so much when it comes to someone like her. I remember Paul Greengrass said of Tom Hanks when he filmed him in Captain Phillips that there was a scene towards the end where the whole crew just stopped and everyone was he was stood behind a monitor just completely sort of transfixed and unable to speak. There are scenes in this where Emma has some incredible moments of dialogue and sort of monologues almost. As a director, are you always just in the zone thinking about the scene, or sometimes are you able to step out of that and just appreciate what you're kind of experiencing on set?
The whole challenge for me as a director is about being as present as possible, especially in a take. And everything you do is like to do that, to be like right there inside that. This is how the audience will see it, and I'm getting everything I possibly can get. So you're almost always in this really heightened, amazing version of that. You're always like, and I know this is a precision behind this. So you enjoy it. I think you pinch yourself all the time with someone like Emma, because she came into a read and like she was so funny, like the first read. And also she had us all in tears in the first read, and we were like, oh, okay. I mean, really peak Emma Thompson vibe.
I mean, obviously it requires, as she said, there's obviously scene towards the end, she said it's one of the scariest moments of her life, and it requires, it's a very brave sort of scene. How did you go about reassuring her about that moment and ensuring it was a safe space? And do you think that as a kind of result of the Me Too movement, the industry has created a more of a safer space now for actors, and male and female, when it comes to kind of sex scenes?
I think so. I think that sets being really safe, sets being really safe is a big part of it, and Emma's very good at ensuring that happens for herself. I was always ready to cut any of it that she wasn't happy with, and we were very strongly driven by a purpose and what the film was about, and so that her doing that scene always felt like she was driven by that, so there was never really a problem there, but it's still a very difficult thing to do. And do I think it's changed? Yes, it is changing, but the fact that it's still a brave thing to do for her means that it hasn't changed very much, do you know? That people are still like, ooh, naked? Imagine doing that, you know? So, yeah, but I do think, she always needed to be safe, and that was everything we did. But that scene is still very difficult to do for any person.
I couldn't do it. It's a very empowering and uplifting film as well, because I think it really pushes the idea of feeling comfortable in your own skin. And I spoke to people afterwards, and everyone sort of felt a bit better about themselves afterwards. Was that the intention? You please, that's one of the messages to being received by the viewers watching
Sure.
this.
How brilliant is that? That's so good. Emma says that about herself, that she feels that. And I hope so, because we're seeing so much material where we're brainwashed all the time into this idea of that our bodies are wrong. I mean, that's how we sell everything, right? Is to make us feel bad about ourselves. Yes, I hope that a film can not only make you feel good because you're watching something and it's enjoyable, but also make you feel like, yeah, there's more important things than how my body looks, for instance.
Well, thank you so much for your time, so much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.